3 disturbing movies that are based on a true story. This first one is one of the biggest plot twists I've ever seen. It's called Orphan, and it's about a married couple who meet a girl named Esther at an orphanage. Soon they find out the family Esther used to live with all mysteriously passed away in a fire. Assuming this was just an accident, they adopt Esther, only to find out she's not who she says she is. This is based on the true story of Barbara Skrylova. Also, Orphan 2 is coming out in January, so go watch the first one now. Next up, we have The Sacrament. This is about a man named Patrick who finds out his sister is now living in a religious community, so him and his co-workers decide to make a documentary about it. But once they arrive, they realize his sister actually joined a cult, and it's based on the true story of Jonestown. Last on the list, we have Veronica. This is about a girl who uses a Ouija board to summon the spirit of her father. But of course, things go terribly wrong, and now something strange is happening to Veronica. This movie is based on the true story of a girl named Estefania from Spain. Follow for more recommendations.
This is why you have to be careful in national parks. So in 2016, a man completely dissolved in a hot spring in Yellowstone. A lot of people don't realize these hot springs are near boiling temperatures, and a lot of them are severely acidic. And falling in happens more than we realize. It terrifies me so much that I made an entire podcast episode about it that's going up tonight. So it's believed that a 23-year-old man and his sister went into Yellowstone to go hot potting, which is when people secretly hang out in the cooler hot springs. It's like really not allowed in the park. His sister was filming him as he went over to one of the hot springs to reach down and touch it to test the temperature, and that's when he tumbled forward and fell in. A rescue team was able to get there, and they saw his body floating in the pool because a fall like that kills you immediately. But a thunderstorm was coming in, so they were gonna have to wait a while to get him out. And by the time they got there, there was nothing left. And unfortunately, this does happen more than we realize. Check out tonight's episode if you're interested in hearing more.
This old lady killed so many people. Baba Anushka, she loved chemistry. And when her husband died, she was like, I'm gonna make the house into a laboratory and sell potions. So a bunch of girls came to her and they were like, we don't want our husbands to go to war. And she was like, I can make them really, really sick so they don't have to. And they were like, yeah, do that. So she started getting really, really popular. But then all the girls were like, we actually don't like our husbands. Can you do a little more? And Baba Anushka was like, yeah, I can kill them. So then all the girls were like, oh, we like this. So Baba Anushka made these deadly potions, gave them to the girls gave them to their abusive husbands, and they were dead in like 8 days. And Baba Anushka would do this thing where she'd ask the girls, how heavy is the problem? Which was code for, how heavy is your husband? Because I gotta make sure I put enough in it, mama. She was so successful that she hired a sales agent to go into town and like sniff out people with marital problems. But this one girl fucked it all up. After she killed her shitty husband, she used another potion to kill her new husband's rich uncle. And the police were like, can you explain this? And she was like, it was Baba Anushka. Baba Anushka was like, are you fucking kidding me? But she ended up getting out of jail and then living to 100.
Here are some facts that you probably didn't know that one day could save your life. If you're ever being attacked by a monkey, give it any food you have because they're overly aggressive when they're hungry. And if you don't have food, make sure the monkey knows by showing your empty hands. If you're ever cooking and the pan catches on fire, do not throw liquid on it. Instead, use the lid to smother the heat and do not remove it for a few minutes. If someone is smothering you with a pillow, move your head to the side to breathe, and if that doesn't work, play dead. Likely your attacker doesn't know exactly how long they'll need to smother you for, and eventually, they'll give up. To test if a plant is edible, first, smell it. If it smells bad, do not eat it, but if it's fine, you can rub a little bit on your skin, and if you have rashes or hives, don't eat it either. If it's still fine, swish it around in your mouth, and if you have no reaction, try eating a small amount before waiting a little bit and eating more. If you're being strangled by a python, stop trying to pry it off, you're not strong enough. Bite it and poke at its eyes until it gets frustrated and leaves you alone.
So I always thought no one ever dies at Disney. Like, even if something horrible happens, they get the person off the park so they can always say that no one's ever died there. But then I found out not only is that not true, but a law firm has compiled all of the incidents. I'm going to share a few of them with you, but if you're interested in stories like this, make sure you follow the podcast because tonight's episode's just going to be these stories. So 2 of the park's worst accidents have both happened on the Matterhorn ride. One of them being a woman named Dolly, who in 1984 fell off of one of the back of the sleds onto the rails. At the time, these gondolas used to go into the rides, and so there was actually a family that watched her fall off onto the track. And so the family also saw as there was another car racing towards Dolly. The dad actually screamed at his daughters to cover their eyes, which was for the best because Dolly got hit hard. She got hit so hard that when EMTs arrived on the scene and were going up into the ride, there were park attendants coming down telling them not to look. And so finally, when someone was looking at the car she was in, they noticed that her seatbelt was unbuckled. But it's never been confirmed if she unbuckled her seatbelt herself or if an attendant didn't check her seatbelt well enough and it was never buckled in the first place. So the disgraced former doctor of the US gymnastics team, Larry Nassar, was attacked in prison over the weekend. So if you're unfamiliar, Larry Nassar was a gymnastics doctor, including being the doctor for the US gymnast team. And he is in jail right now because he abused over 260 girls, including Allie Reisman, who is seen here putting the nail in his coffin at his trial. Larry was able to get away with SAing gymnasts for decades because everyone was covering up for him. The US gymnastics team was covering up for him, the FBI got involved, and they lied about witness statements, and then 70 more girls went on to be assaulted. The earliest that Larry can get out of prison is when he is 144 years old, but at this rate, he's not going to make it that long. Because prison is not kind to people who commit crimes like Larry did, and this wasn't the first time he was attacked. Larry was also attacked in 2018 when he was moved into the general population of the prison. And now it seems like something similar happened because Larry got 10 times, suffering hits to the face, neck, and chest, but he is alive. And I know you're watching this and you're probably like, well, why would we be sad about that? Well, the victims don't necessarily want Larry to die by someone else's hand in prison. A statement from a victim today said that she would rather have Larry live out his time in prison because death would just be an easy out for him.
This is the scariest tattoo shop in America, the Convent Tattoo in New Jersey. This place is reportedly haunted by over 1,000 ghosts, and it's home to 7 full-size skeletons, hundreds of haunted artifacts, and even serial killer artwork from people like John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. Employees who have experienced paranormal activity here have actually quit overnight, and we spent the night alone in the building ghost hunting. What we experienced in there was shocking, and I'm about to play you a clip from my latest YouTube video that shows one of the scariest moments that happened right here. The full video's on my YouTube channel. You should definitely check it out if you like spooky stuff.
You gonna move a ball? Knock one off. No way. No way. Was that you?
Oh, dude, I just got f***ing anxiety, bro. I feel like something just walked up. I started on my right side, and it's like hard for me to breathe.
Bro.
What?
I committed one of the worst massacres of World War II in Oradour-sur-Glane, France. I am Adolphe Deichmann, and this is the bleak and tragic tale I carry. In the year 1914, I was born in Germany and rose to the rank of a German officer during the Second World War. By 1934, I had enlisted in the Protection Squadron and gradually ascended through the ranks. In June of 1944, I assumed command of the Das Reich unit under our German leadership. Tasked with quelling the French resistance, I was on the brink of perpetrating an unimaginable horror. On June 10, 1944, I led my team into Border Circle, a tranquil French hamlet. That day, a dreadful terror fell upon its defenseless and entrapped citizens who were helpless against our onslaught. Our orders were to perceive them as terrorists. The men were separated from the women and children in the village square and herded into the church. Upon the signal, the men were pitilessly executed, and the women and children met their end in the blazing church. We, as a unit, spread terror through the streets and homes, leaving behind a village charred to ashes and hundreds of casualties. Justice never found me, as I met my end in the battlefield during the Battle of Normandy on June 29, 1944. Please share in the comments the stories you'd like to hear next.
This murderer was captured on CCTV dressed in full police gear. Their identity still remains a mystery. 45-year-old Missy Bevers was a mother of 3. She was a fitness instructor who specialised in doing gladiator boot camps for her clients. On the morning of the 18th of April 2016, she arrived at a church in Texas to do one of her classes. However, minutes after arriving, she was killed. Now, the church she arrived at was only 20 minutes away from her house. It was around 4 a.m. that morning that she arrived at the church and she was unloading equipment from her car. Little did she know, someone was already in the building waiting for her. Dressed head to toe in police gear, the mystery figure entered the church at about 3:50 a.m. The person, as you can see, was wearing a helmet and gloves. The only real identifying factor was that their right foot was turned outwardly as they walked. 45 minutes later, Missy's body was found by her horrified clients. She had puncture wounds to her head and her chest. Now, looking into who could have committed such a hideous crime, her husband Brandon had an alibi. He was on a fishing trip in Mississippi. However, mobile phone records did show that Missy and her husband were talking about an affair. Missy had also received flirtatious messages on LinkedIn. Apparently she had quite a creepy message on LinkedIn, and she'd showed one of her friends. Now, this was actually shortly before her death. On April the 22nd, 4 days after her death, her father-in-law Randy did something very strange. He took a woman's top to the dry cleaners that was covered in blood. Now, he said somebody had split up a fight between two dogs and it was blood off the dog. Randy also had an alibi too. He was in California at the time of the killing. Police analysed the blood found on the shirt and it did actually come from a dog. Police then started getting tips about a former tactical police officer, Bobby Wayne Henry. He actually still had the full police riot gear like the one that the killer was wearing. However, he stated that his no longer fit him. He actually also walked with a limp like the person in the CCTV. However, analysis was done on the CCTV and they realised that Bobby was actually probably too tall to be the killer. He was eventually ruled out and the mystery of who killed Missy still remains unsolved.
I'm truly shocked this man has never been convicted of a crime. This is Bryan Singer, a famous A-list Hollywood film director who's directed movies like X-Men and a bunch of other stuff. If you haven't watched part 1 of this series where we talk about this guy, you should definitely go do that now, but let's pick up where we left off. So it's now the year 2017, a few years ago. Bryan Singer has been accused 3 different times in 3 different lawsuits of acting inappropriately with minors, assaulting them, videoing them, etc. I mean, all you have to do is Google Bryan Singer and all these kind of disturbing pictures pop up. And I mean, just look at his eyes. That's a dead stare if I've ever seen one. It was in 2017 when this man, Cesar Sanchez Guzman, came forward and accused Bryan Singer of assaulting him. This is the 4th lawsuit that was brought against Bryan. He claimed that in 2003, Bryan Singer had assaulted him and drugged him. After this lawsuit was announced, the University of Southern California removed Bryan Singer's name from its campus. And this is where things really hit a turning point. Or do they? Well, a couple years later, Bryan Singer approved a $150,000 settlement with Guzman. Although he never admitted any guilt, he said that this was simply a financial and business decision. He wanted to put this behind him and just finish the issue out. But I do think it's kind of fishy that you would settle a case like this and not fight it if you were purely innocent. So in 2019, the same year that the case with Guzman was settled by Bryan, this article came out in The Atlantic, which just blew the roof off of this case. This was a thorough investigative report that attempted to corroborate the claims made by all the accusers in the past and even brought forward 4 new accusers with accusations that Bryan had, been acting inappropriately with them when they were minors. The article also claimed that this lawsuit filed by Guzman was stalled and didn't go anywhere because Bryan Singer's legal team had reported Guzman to the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, and to immigration authorities. Singer's team denied this, but obviously it is something to consider here. After that last investigative article was posted, Bryan's name was basically wiped from Hollywood. A number of projects he was attached to were never released. After that last article came out, Bryan Singer's name was wiped from Hollywood, at least from the surface, I should say. And a number of projects that he was working on got dropped. And since then, a number of articles have come out claiming that he was manipulative, abusive, he was an alcoholic, and this was all towards partners that were above the age of 18. So there's no real telling what the truth is in this story. But I will say that it's been alleged that Bryan Singer hosted these wild parties with underage boys with fellow film director Roland Emmerich. This was back in the 90s. The details of these parties are shocking and disturbing. You can watch that documentary in Open Secret once again if you don't know what I'm talking about. But a lot of it is too vile for TikTok. But at the end of the day, I just think I'm shocked that after all of those lawsuits, all of the allegations, Bryan Singer has never faced any sort of repercussion for his actions beyond being essentially blacklisted from Hollywood from the surface. For more content like this, be sure to give me a follow here on TikTok.
rejected a boy and the rejection led to my death. Hello. My name is Junko Furuta. I was born in 1971, Mizudu City. I lived a relative normal and happy life. I was a very ambitious girl that were very focused on becoming successful. I was known to never drink, party, or do anything illegal. I didn't seem like the type to attract bad boy kind of personality. But one upcoming gang member named Mayano did fall in love with me. And this gang member had connections with Japan's most feared criminal organization, the Yakuza. He asked me on a date, but I was not feeling the same, so I turned him down. The result of my rejection was a fatal one. He felt embarrassed and humiliated, so he wanted revenge. Around 8:30 p.m. on November 25, 1988, I was riding my bike home after my full shift at work. My night of joy was about to become a night of horror. As I rode home on my bicycle, I was suddenly pushed to the ground by Mayano's friend Minato while Mayano hid nearby to begin his deception. He ran over to me claiming to have witnessed the attack and offered me to walk me home safely. I trusted him and allowed him to walk me home. Along the way, Mayano grabbed me and forced me into a warehouse. I was violated by Mayano in the most sickening way, having his way with me without any remorse. But this was only the beginning of my nightmare. I was assaulted again in a nearby hotel by several boys. They then concocted a plan to make me suffer for weeks. They took me to a house that already had been used as a gang hangout. They humiliated and violated me several times. They forced me to call my parents and tell them I was okay, so my parents would not inform the police. The first week of this ordeal, I was being forced to sleep in the balcony on cold nights. I was being forced to sit in a freezer and I was beat every single day. I unfortunately survived. The 10th day, Miyano and his friends would intensify their attacks. Skewers of hot food, scissors, and even fireworks was put inside me. I crawled to a phone in the house and called the police, but before I could call the police, my aunt caught me. I was subjected to even more pain beyond anything I had experienced yet. I thought my chance for freedom was lost, but one of the boys who had been invited to violate me decided to tell his brother what was happening at the Minato house, who then called the police. But police failed me. The police went to the house, but decided not to search it. They believed the invitation to search the house was sufficient proof that there was nothing to hide. Had they followed through on the information they were given, I could have been saved. This got my Anna even angrier. He tied me to the ceiling and used me as a human punching bag. I was unable to breathe through my nose anymore. By day 30 of this ordeal, I was unable to walk. The damage to my internal and intimate organs were so severe that I could not even go to the bathroom anymore. I begged my captors to end my life to release me from the pain. On the 44th day, they beat me up so bad I finally died. Police found my killers, but the system was about to fail me in death like they failed me in life. Maino received a light sentence of 20 years. Minato, Agira, and Yasushi served around 8 years each. Today, they roam the streets free after serving their time.